Well, good day, everyone. This is Terry from Jensen, and thank you for joining me on Facebook once again. Today's topic will be MiYO effects in the anterior incisal area, or actually pretty much at least half or two-thirds of the facial. So let's get started with this, and we'll let you get back to work. So again, MiYO effects in the anterior incisal area. So today we'll be talking about the common anterior effects that you see, lower value or create depth, but also, we have the lumen, we can increase value too and create translucency in the proximal or incisal. Some mamelon effects, we have mamelon effect colors, but I don't always use just the colors that come with the mamelon effects. And incisal halos, they can be modified. And hypocalcification and crack lines. So for the lower value, create depth, the smoke, the storm, and the slate, you see where I have the arrows, you get a little bit of a more of a depth there. So we want to have more translucency. You want to create some translucency. Storm and cobalt. Storm is a blue-gray, and cobalt's more intense. For the mamelon effects, we have wheat, coral, and pumpkin, and I give you some descriptions up there. But you can use other things as well too, because you might want to have a different color. For incisal halos, we have spring and autumn. Spring's kind of a pastel, and autumn's kind of a light, like burnt leaf color, but they're great for the colors we have. If you have hypocalcification and crack lines, snow's total white. So if you have a real dark or real deep white hypocalcification, use more snow. But if it's kind of a subtle one, then I normally mix a little bit of linen or wheat in with the snow, usually about 3 to 4 parts of linen or wheat in with the snow to tame the snow down a little bit, because snow gets a little crazy. It's so intense. So we're going to start with a clean restoration and flow an even coat of in-sync paste glaze on the surface. Float the MiYO effect colors on top of the in-sync paste glaze where appropriate, and fire according to the material type or the mass of the restoration. Because, the bigger your restoration, or if it's like Emax or Lisi, you have to give it a little more heat. So we start off with clean. It doesn't have to be sandblasted. I just use a little soap and water usually. I want to put a thin coat of the in-sync paste glaze on it, the foundation of a good glazed color, and you want an even, smooth coat. And I put a little clementine in the root area. Now you can wipe off the paste glaze in this root area if you want to apply it right there so you have like a boundary, or you can apply it right on top of the paste glaze. If you want it more translucent, just thin it down a little bit. The paste glaze will hold it in place. And we have a little bit of shade A application here. Now, this is just a little bit speeded up here so you can see, because this wasn't really what I'm talking to. But remember to float color on the surface of the in-sync paste glaze to get a smoother blend. And in addition, it'll glide on a lot easier. If I'm trying to fill in or smooth it down, I'll use the smaller brush. The addition of smoke to slightly lower the value or increase the translucency. Smoke is a violet gray, so it's just very, very subtle. It's not overpowering. So if you're just trying to transluce it a little bit or make it look a little bit deeper, smoke is the one you want. If you want more of a translucent effect, we go to storm or we go to cobalt. But for just light lowering of value or translucency, I use the smoke. It's a lot safer, and it's very, very subtle. It's hard to tell you added the color, except for it looks deeper. So you can see the values lowering there in that band in the middle third. And so now I'm adding storm to create an incisal and proximal translucent window. The storm is a blue-gray. And again, if you have the paste glaze down first, you can put on this very, very thin amounts, and it'll stay right where you put it. It won't ball up. It has a surface tension that if you have it a certain thickness, it'll obviously stay. But if you want it very, very translucent, you can put it on thinner if it goes on top of a paste glaze layer, because sticky likes to stick to sticky, and it stays right where you put it. So if you want to float the color off the tip of the brush, it will not drift due to the surface tension of this in-sync paste glaze. Good thing to remember, and a good reason to use the in-sync paste glaze to hold everything in place. So now I'm just going to take and clean up an adjustment for anything that I think needs to have a little bit of touch up done to it. That's a nice thing about MiYO. No matter what you do, until you fire it, you can move things around. So the Storm Edition is simulate separation of mamelon lobes. Same thing you're putting on the incisal edge, but just a little bit more intense. So I had too much there on my brush, so I just touched some to my thumbnail and it came off. And now I'm going to add coral as a mamelon effect, and you want to place it adjacent to the storm vertical line that you put in there because it'll make it pop. You know, it's that contrast between the coral and the storm, the blue and the kind of salmon-y peach color. Just a little bit more enhancement right at the tip. And now I'll add some spring halo. And I keep this just a little bit thicker, and then it wants to string like a hot glue gun, where you can just keep it right on that incisal edge. And again, because you have the in-sync paste glaze, it'll stay where you put it. So if I want to do a crack line, I normally use about 3 parts linen to 1 part snow. Sometimes I want a little more subtle, 4 parts linen to 1 part snow. You could use the wheat. The wheat's very, very subtle in its yellowness. And I just touch it up with a brush and make it nice and fine. You don't have to get it perfect on the first swipe. Just come back with a very fine, dry brush and adjust and push the line where you want it. And again, I'll put one on the distal, and I see this one went on too thick. And all I have to do is clean my brush, have it dry, and then push and swipe, and I can adjust that crack line to any dimension I want it to be, or move it around. So it really is just this simple. So I'm going to come back with some hypocalcification. And again, this is about 4 parts linen to 1 part snow. I don't want it very intense. Sometimes I'll use my incisal mix, but the incisal mix goes on and it's almost translucent because it's like an enamel. And for those of you who don't know, my incisal mix is 5 parts linen, or 5 parts lumen, 1 part linen, and a third of a part of snow. But this right here is around 4 parts linen to 1 part snow. I put it on in lines, and then I'll feather it and push it back and forth so you have kind of like clouds in the middle. And now I'll add a little bit of smoke, just like we did to the mamelons, to have it contrasted against the storm. I'll use a little bit of smoke above the hypocalcification, and that'll lower the value against the white. It just gives it a little bit of a pop. Well, without making it dramatic, you don't know what's going on, but it looks nice. So here I am rolling it back and forth at different angles, and you can see the effects. Very subtle. I put a little hypocalcification between the root section and the dentin of the body of the restoration. So there we go. So now we're just going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it in pictures. So I don't have to keep it so much in focus as I'm moving. So here it is as centered. I clean it with dishwashing soap and water. I've applied the in-sync paste glaze, nice smooth coat. So I'll have some shade A and some hypocalcification, which is mostly linen, a little bit snow, like I mentioned to you. I added the clementine to the root area. You can see the fine hypocalcification. And then I've added storm to the proximal incisal edges. And I've added the vertical striations. And then I added some cobalt because it didn't show up so much. So you can see those deeper bluish lines. And I added a little shade D for a mesial mamelon. You don't have to just use the mamelons we have in the kit. You can use whatever color is appropriate. And the coral. And the spring halo. Spring works great. And I used a little smoke in the incisal third just to make it a little more translucent, a little hypocalcification in the middle third right here, and a whitish crack line on the mesial and a brownish crack line on the distal. So there's the final restoration. Easy to get these effects. Takes you about 2.5 to 3.5 minutes total time, then to fire it. Thank you very much. If you still have any questions, please call our technical department at 800-528-5531 for further assistance. Make sure to follow Jensen Dental on Facebook and Instagram so you can be updated every time we go live. And you can also visit jensendental.com/MiYO to learn more about MiYO. Thanks for watching today, and please click the follow button to get notifications of future MiYO education tips and tricks. This has been Terry with Jensen. Thank you so much for your time, and please see us again.